Hey, how's it going, guys? It's been a while since I made a video, and it's a Dragon Ball video, kind of, in a way. It's not really me playing Dragon Ball. It's not me shitting on Dragon Ball in particular, but it's just like a kind of reflection of the game and a thought process I've had for a while. I never, I never decided to share. I've talked about it with people, but I never made like a post about it or talked about it in a video. And it's how the game has progressed over time, and I think the overall philosophy that the game has had in terms of the mechanics and how they've changed throughout the seasons. Hey, how's it going, guys? It's been a while since I made a video, and it's a Dragon Ball video, kind of, in a way. It's not really me playing Dragon Ball. It's not me shitting on Dragon Ball in particular, but it's just like a kind of reflection of the game and a thought process I've had for a while. I never decided to share. I've talked about it with people, but I never made like a post about it or talked about it in a video. And it's how the game has progressed over time, and I think the overall philosophy that the game has had in terms of the mechanics and how they've changed throughout the seasons. And the way they set up this game, how it is, I don't think it was intentional at the start, but I think over time they realized or kind of matured their ideas on how the game should be. And whether you think it's good or bad is it's kind of up to you. I don't think it's necessarily a good philosophy, but I kind of get why it is. I know I'm dancing around what I'm talking about here, but what I mean is the game Dragon Ball Fighters is set up to be like the anime. And what I mean by that is the game constantly puts you in a scenario where it wants to be this kind of scenario. And I'm going to show you what it is. Alright? It wants to be this. This is what it wants it to be, essentially. Well, let me rephrase that, because I can't set them to all die. There we go. There we go. This is what the game wants to be like. Let me move my camera so you have a better grasp of what I'm talking about here, right? One pixel, you got the resources, you got it all, right? It's down to the wire, just like an epic Dbfz fight. Kind of like Jiren vs Goku. They kind of go back and forth, back and forth. The game is set like that. It's set up like the anime. They want the game, they want every match to go back and forth until it's like this the last pixel. And I thought about this, I think in season 2, in a way, I felt like they wanted to go into this direction for quite a bit. And my thinking of what their philosophy is kind of submerged, or like it was kind of verified in my eyes when season 3 dropped, and I saw they changed how Snap works, and even over time, right? So like in the beginning of the game, level 3s were insane. You have insane Oki for a lot of characters, a lot of mix-up potential. In the beginning, Snap was very powerful. I mean, it was very powerful up until season 3. And sparking used to not be able to do it on block, which is a huge thing. Sparking not being on a block was very volatile because there are a lot of characters, especially season 1, that will be able to put you in block stuff for essentially forever and reset their assists. Kind of like that Kazunoko team is a pretty prime example of that. So I want to go over why I think that is, and some key mechanics that kind of put that philosophy in motion. The first one, and I think is the least importance, the least of, I don't know how to phrase it. Essentially, it's not the most important thing in terms of this philosophy of making the game act like the anime, in terms of just clashing heads until you have one HP left and you both swing for it, right? And that's sparking. And I think sparking is actually a pretty decent mechanic in terms of comeback potential. It's like it's a pretty good mechanic overall, I think, in terms of in the grand scheme of fighting games. I don't think it's the worst comeback mechanic of all time. And like I mentioned, sparking, being able to do on block was a huge deal, and I think it was a very good change for the game. Even though it does favor that philosophy of making it like the anime, back and forth, back and forth. Making sparking a block was a very big, change. It was a very good change for the game, which is why I listed like number one or fourth in the ranking of things that I don't think affects the way the game is played in terms of like the constant back and forth aspect of it. Number two for me is guard cancel. Again, another mechanic that has changed over time. For guard cancel, used to not be very great. Into people thinking in season 2 that guard cancel is gonna be worse, which is kind of a crazy concept. Overall, ended up being way better. Guard cancel is a much more fair mechanic. It's a much better defensive mechanic. As it went on, season 2 they haven't really changed in season 3, and I think it's safe to say that guard cancel is as good as it is right now. I think it's fine. That's why I put it like third on the list of things that I think are not as important. These last two are very, very big. One of them being raw tag, which has stayed the exact same essentially throughout the entire game. So is the next one I'm going to talk about as well. But yeah, raw tag is very volatile and is one of those main mechanics that's very hard to stop. That is, it is a defensive mechanic. You know, you want to bring your characters back in. And it's very interesting for raw tag, is that blue health, right? I think in the middle of season 1, they kind of liked how back and forth the game was, but the game was taking too long. And I'm going to go over this a little bit more in detail, but as they approach their philosophy of make it as close as possible to every match, they also didn't want the game to be too long, so they definitely introduced things to speed up the process of getting into that very, very high impact 1v1 character, 1 HP left. They want to get that very quick. And sometimes it wasn't like that, because it is a fighting game, you're not going to have it all the time. So if someone's way better than the other, there's a lot of matches, especially for Season 1, where it would just be one character, or not even like someone's way worse. It just so happened to be the match for it to go a certain way, that it's just like one character versus 3 characters, and it's taking forever. They're trying to make the comeback, and it's taking way long when the game is, or the match is already over, essentially. Because it's very hard to come back, to make a comeback against a 3v1. Which is why sparking came into play a lot for keeping your point character alive. It's kind of how that metagame has formed, because saving it for your last character ended up being a very bad option in the long term. But yeah, back to raw tag, right? Raw tag has pretty much stayed the same and has been a very, very, very good mechanic. And they have, kind of made it worse in a way that blue health is not as apparent as it used to be, but the way it works is still very obnoxious, and it's very hard for people to deal with, especially at lower levels of play. Even higher levels, right? The first one I could think of is Hook Gang God. Used to terrorize the game early on, especially with raw tag. He was very good at picking up how extremely strong his defensive option raw tag was. So when the game was new and we all were scrubs, he took advantage of that, and we definitely fell apart against that strategy early on in the game's lifespan, especially Season 1. And my last thing is knockdowns. Knockdowns. The amount of options you have off of a knockdown is so good. It is so good. Right? I don't remember where to find the knockdown option. I think it's the enemy, I'm pretty sure. But as I look for that, yeah, knockdowns are very strong. Essentially, it's from, I believe it was frame 1 to 30. You can pick when you get up. Of course, if you get up like that, you limit some of your options, but think about that. Frame 1 to frame 30. That window is humongous. And you have all the other options, like you could tech forward, you could just tech off the ground, just mash buttons. You have sparking, especially now you can do it on block, so if you end up being put in a block stun. And now level 3 is much weaker, especially people like Bardock, Hibu, SSJ Goku, which is really not apparent in the game right now. Level 3 Oki being much weaker, like those hard knockdowns aren't as important as they used to be, and soft knockdowns are of course the majority of the game. You're going to be having those. So I think that's like the biggest aspect of how the pendulum swings back and forth in terms of play, where it's very very hard to just lock down your opponent when eventually you're gonna have to get a soft knockdown and it's their turn to make a very very easy decision and just kind of like pick up any option off of a knockdown and kind of swing back in their favor. You know, it goes back and forth. Especially how the damage works in this game. Usually you're getting a 2-touch. The good teams usually 2-touch, maybe 3 still. So, you know, you get the one hit, right? You know, swings back in their favor. They get the soft knockdown. You guess wrong. Goes in their favor. They get a touch, right? They get their 1 touch. And then you're kind of back even, essentially. You're basically both at 1 touch for your characters, unless you obviously switch out. The game has been set up in a way where they want to make sure, no matter how bad you are or how much the skill gap it is, they want to make sure that the games are as close as possible so they get the most action, which has favored the game greatly, right? Because, you know, the game looks so good. It looks just like the anime. You want anime style battles. You want people just duking it out. Like I said 1,000 times in this video, 1 HP, 1 HP, 1 character, and like that's as close as you can get. Or like a huge comeback factor, which is kind of the fifth pick in here, which is obviously the newest mechanic, Limit Break. Limit Break was kind of their way of mitigating the early stages of the game where you'd be down 3v1, the game is essentially over, but the comeback is slowly building, but it's too little too late, and you essentially waste an extra like minute or two playing out a match that is basically over. You know, sometimes comebacks can happen, but in the majority of the time, in a 3v1 situation, maybe the guy will get 1 kill, or maybe bring a second character to very low HP, but it's, you know, the guy that's in the lead just takes their time and they get a free easy pick, and, you know, the game's over. Limit Break was their way of making it more volatile, and also making it those huge impact swings where you don't even have to be at that 1 HP. You could be like, you could have like half health, and someone could just kill you off of like a wake up level 3 if their character has a strong one. So, yeah, the game, it's like I don't know how many people have thought about this, but I've thought about this for a very long time. So I kind of want to put that out there, that I think this has been their philosophy for the game for quite a while, and they've kind of, you know, fine-tune it in a way to make it as good as they can get it. Because who knows if they're going to have another season of this game. And, you know, all the mechanics stacked up together, defensive options are very, very strong, and the pendulum swing of the game